Good morning, everybody. おはようございます。元気ですか？大丈夫ですか？残念ながら、ほとんどは英語でやりますんで、みんな、一緒に頑張りましょう。まずはちょっと質問を聞きたいんですけども、シリコンバレー行ったことある方、手を挙げてください。シリコンバレー、はい。20% ぐらい。中国へ行ったことある方、はい。もうちょっとですね。はい。Okay, so you might wonder why French guy is going to tell you about China. It's a bit strange, but well, there's stranger things in the world, so we'll just go with it. So to introduce myself very briefly, so my name is Benjamin Joff. I've been working in Asia for about 15 years. I worked in Japan, that was quite a while ago, but since then I worked in Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, and quite a lot in China, mostly in telecom, web, mobile, and about 2 years ago I dived into hardware. And I found that it was quite an exciting time. So I'm going to share that. And a few things I've learned about China. So I'm a general partner at Hacks. We're a hardware accelerator. I love Twitter. If you have any question, send to my Twitter, and I'll be happy to answer in English or Japanese, whatever works. So about Hacks. So we're a hardware accelerator. We were pretty much the first accelerator for startups focusing on hardware. We started 3 years ago. And we invested so far in 80 startups. We invest at very early stage, between $25,000 to $300,000 or more for equity. Our idea is that we can combine the strengths of any team in any country with the strengths of China on the supply chain, and the strengths of Silicon Valley. China is amazing for manufacturing. This is the place where the world makes its electronics. And Silicon Valley is a great place to launch new products, find partners, investors, and more. So in terms of teams, we're based in China, but actually less than, about 10% of our teams come from China. About 60% come from US and Canada, 20% from Europe, from places like this, Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, former Apple people. We even had a team from Keio, and we also have like self-taught inventors who didn't necessarily go to university. So what kind of startups do we work with? Those are some examples of some that reached already pretty high valuations in less than 2 years. Robotics kits, smart home devices, IoT tools. We take a lot of our startups doing B2C to Kickstarter. Those are the most successful ones, basically over $1 million for each of them. The one in the middle is actually really interesting because it might change the world of IoT. It's the world's first $9 computer. It's a full computer for $9. We're the most active venture capital firm in crowdfunding, according to TechCrunch, and we've done over 30 campaigns on Kickstarter so far, all successful. So the key categories we look at is robotics, IoT, advanced manufacturing, medical devices, lifestyle products, more like consumer type. Some examples of robotics. When we think of robotics, particularly in Japan, we think of either humanoid robots or industrial robots, like just robotic arms in factories. But actually, robotics is changing many, many industries. Can you guess what the one on the left can do? This kind of strange robot, like looks almost like military robot, actually an industrial cleaning robot to clean places like these, where Roomba don't do so well. The one in the middle is a robot for biotech labs that automates all the hand pipetting that lab techs have to do. Saves them enormous amount of time. These type of robots existed already, but were costing $50,000 to $100,000, were really hard and complicated to operate. What's amazing with robotics is that you can make much cheaper robots today, and basically we're going, in many industries, from the mainframe era to the desktop era. The one on the right is a really low-cost robotic arm with many degrees of freedom that will allow automation of many, many tasks. IoT tools, the one on the left, you know 3D printers. This is a printer for circuit boards, to make electronic circuit boards to prototype. In less than an hour, you can have a circuit board ready. Normally, that takes you like at least a week generally to order, and pretty expensive. You can do it on your desktop for $20. Advanced manufacturing. So this is like pretty crazy innovation. You could call it a kind of Macintosh moment for the fabric industry. It's a printer that prints fabric, starting from liquid polymer, and then prints on a kind of mold, and then you can actually wear it. It's still pretty early stage, but you can imagine the impact this could have in a few years' time. Medical devices, this is a new category for us. We started about a year ago to put effort into it. Now we have 6 companies we invested in as medical devices. This one is a smart insole that maps the pressure of your feet. Started as basically a diagnostic tool for people who have diabetes, have problems with like losing sensation in their feet. And that there's now a lot of potential to applications for many sports. Lifestyle products, I won't go into details. So will China hardware eat the world? Probably that's a question that many Japanese and Korean and other electronics manufacturers are wondering about. The first thing under that threat is that a lot of products are getting commoditized really, really fast. You know Xiaomi, probably you heard. This is the world's, I think, 3rd largest smartphone maker today. But they expanded in many, many other products. I heard in the panel before that people were saying, oh, soon people in Indonesia, in Thailand, in other places will be able to afford an iPhone. Well, before they get an iPhone, they're going to get a Xiaomi, because that's a quarter of the price. And the performance is comparable to the top line of Samsung phones. So there's this Xiaomization going on, commoditization with disruptive prices and high quality of consumer electronics. Just a few examples. This is an activity tracker called the Mi Band, created by one of the companies Xiaomi invested in. They invest in a bunch of companies and then help sell the products. This is less than $15. It's about the price of a bento. This is like about a tenth of the price of a Fitbit for similar functionality. Those are some other products in the Xiaomi ecosystem. So the activity tracker, Bluetooth speakers, IP camera, just like Dropcam, action camera, just like GoPro, headphones, just like Beats. You see the prices of those, right? This is game-changing. So what can you do? Xiaomi is going to compete with everybody. And if you're in the land of commodities, it's going to be really hard. And the problem is that there's more and more products that are entering the realm of commodities. This product used to be a very innovative thing, Segway, invented about 15 years ago. Business went kind of so-so, more or less okay, and eventually they finally got a competitor in China called Ninebot, born in 2012, took a while. Last year, and actually this year, I think this year, yeah, Ninebot acquired Segway after receiving $80 million investment from Xiaomi and Sequoia. Segway is now Chinese. And the reason was that the Chinese company could make products of very high quality at much lower price and get to market and keep improving the supply chain much better than Segway did. So this is the threat. Another example, maybe you know in those other like personal mobility devices, like the one-wheel thing and the kind of scooter type of thing on the left. This is a picture I took last week in a just shopping mall next to our office. This scooter thing on the left is still considered very innovative. I think it was on display in like conferences in Japan like last year. Most of those products, actually, it's been invented in the US, but the US company that invented it still doesn't have its supply chain well done. The US product is kind of buggy, is expensive, so the Chinese companies have actually redesigned it entirely. So you cannot even say they reverse engineer it, because there was nothing to reverse engineer. They just recreated it, and it's on sale. It's like $300 to get one of those. And there's also innovation. You heard of DJI, leader in drones, Shenzen company, the multi-billion-dollar company today. So commoditization of what's existing, expansion of what gets commoditized. So what can you do? So you can work with China. That's what we do. And the way we avoid commoditization is by going toward harder things. So Ben Horowitz was talking about the hard things, about like company management. But there's also hard things inside products. And the teams we work with typically come with a lot of R&D. They invent things that are actually hard to replicate. You cannot just take the product apart and copy it. There's a lot of software, there's a lot of science, there's artificial intelligence, there's algorithms, things that are not easy to do. So work with China is important because what startups need innovation, of course, but also speed, the right price, and go global very fast. If you combine things well, that's what you can do. Speed matters. So this is the CEO of another very famous drone company called 3D Robotics, Chris Anderson. He's the guy who wrote The Long Tail and also the book about makers. He started as kind of a hobbyist in the drone industry, but what he says now is that before you had 6 years to kind of figure out your business, get to market. Today you have 6 months. Things are going really fast. So Shenzhen makes sense because the silicon has moved out of Silicon Valley, essentially, and is now in Shenzhen. Shenzhen is the electronics capital of the world. That's where iPads are made. It's fast, it's cheap, it's scalable, and more recently, it's open for startups. Before, factories wouldn't answer your calls. Now they do. But for many people, China is still a black box. They haven't gone there. They haven't done the work at understanding the supply chain, at like engaging with the manufacturers, understand how you can use those unique resources. The idea is really to build on the shoulders of giants, not Foxconn, because Foxconn and Flextronics and giant companies like this don't know how to work with startups. What you want to work with is the incredible number of smaller factories that can still have tens of thousands of employees and that make products. For example, so this is Roomba. Roomba is good at entertaining cats, but it's not so good at cleaning big places like this. Those machines are, but those machines require humans. So one of our startups, I mentioned earlier, decided to turn those into a robot. But they didn't want to become a cleaning machine maker. They want to become a robotics company. So they found one of those factories that was doing that. And there were actually multiple. They found one, they hacked the product, they make it work as a robot, and then they showed it to the factory owner. And the factory owner was like, this is the future of my business. Let's work together. And that's what happened. So you can go faster with China. And speed is really important. What our startups coming from Silicon Valley tell us is that China works at startup speed. People pick up calls on Sunday night, 10 p.m. 1 week in Shenzhen, get as much work done on products as 1 month in Silicon Valley. Speed is of the essence. This is a shopping mall next to our office at the bottom left corner. This is just full of components. There's about 20 of those in Huaqiangbei in Shenzhen. It's like the Mecca or like Alibaba's cavern for everything electronics. And that accelerates your iterations on your products, such as this is what you can do in just a few months. Another product here, the PCB printer, circuit board printer. 1 year, they did what they have on the left, and people were just wondering if the thing really worked. 3 months later, they had what's on the right. And at that point, people only asked the price. So supply chain is a weapon, and if you're a startup and you don't use the best supply chain in the world, others will. A quote from Joy Ito, director of Media Lab, that after visiting Shenzhen, he did a big report and he realized that they're just more likely to be successful connecting with Shenzhen, just like you connect with Silicon Valley, than competing with it head-on. So how about Japan? What can Japan do? So I used to live in Japan. I love Japanese products. I think Japan has great engineers, great potential, and Japan keeps disappointing me by not churning out great companies like it should. So the assets in Japan, you all know about that. Engineers, designers, great research, quality, long-term view, large domestic market, which is sometimes a problem because it doesn't push to go outside. And there's issues, lack of entrepreneurs, lack of a big vision, lack of ambition. Basically going for a local IPO with just a few million that seems to satisfy everybody and is lacking the global ambition that companies in the US tend to have, too local. I think lack of VC funding is just an excuse because great companies find funding because their product sells. China, on the other hand, has lots of entrepreneurs, probably too many, so it becomes really hard to actually hire managers and experienced people because they just want to do their own thing. They have, of course, manufacturing skills, lots of venture capital, a large domestic market, but they also have issues. It's also kind of too local, have problems with design, creativity, and they're quite short term. So you could imagine a combination of Japan and China would work really well. And I think that's a possibility. And that's more or less what we do with the startups we work with. We inject them with Chinese DNA so that they learn how to leverage the supply chain. Because being an entrepreneur is about finding the best resources. And China offers the best ones for hardware. Those are some examples of Japanese companies I think are doing quite a good work at working with China. Cerevo is a very active company in the hardware space. Instead of one big product, their target is to create multiple niche high-tech products for prosumers. So on this one on the left is a fixture, smart fixture for snowboard. They created this kind of gadget gun inspired by this anime that's great for cosplay. It's so niche that Xiaomi will never do that, but it can still be a great business. And the founder has been going to China for about 6 or 7 years on his own. He didn't speak English. He didn't speak Chinese. He went there. Now he speaks pretty good English. He can order his food in Chinese, but mostly he knows how to work with the people. This is another Japanese company that came in the news recently called UPQ, and they released over a dozen products that are mostly basically OEM reworked from China, kind of Xiaomi style, for the Japanese market. I think they try to become the Japan's Xiaomi. It probably lacks innovation, but in terms of execution, it's great, and it leverages China's resources. So to take a kind of controversial quote to end, I'll quote Mr. Nakamura, the inventor of blue LED, who I think was partly misquoted when he said, Japanese should leave Japan. What he actually said was Japanese should leave Japan to check what's out there and come back and combine with what they learned and what they can find here to create great companies. And I think that's the solution. If you want to create a global company, you need to have global understanding, global knowledge. You need to know Silicon Valley. You need to know China. And I think that's the future of hardware. So thank you very much.